Beyond the Gates spoilers for next week, October 2024, 2025, tease that Nicole tells Ted that their lives have closed like a book, that this chapter is over. The words fall between them like a window slamming shut in a winter wind, the glass rattling with all that has gone unsaid. But closure is never neat, and Nicole, hardened by years of bruises and abrupt awakenings, means something else when she says it. Beneath the resignation is a sliver of hope, a pulse that suggests endings can be rerouted. She wants to bury the burden of what came before and start a new chapter beside Ted, not away from him. The thought is both reckless and unbearably tender. It promises rescue and threatens to sink them both deeper into a sea they cannot chart. There was a tremor in her voice, sadness mixed with defiance. She imagined a future where the shadows of the past knew no name, where laughter could be heard without the echoes of old mistakes. That fantasy began, awkwardly and wonderfully, at a dinner party in a house that smelled of citrus and candle wax, where relationships were both fractured and mended. The party at Martin and Smitty's has the brittle glamour of people trying to be happy for themselves. Laughter hangs like string lights, pretty, decorative, sometimes dim, but the important scenes happen in the margins. Nicole slips into the living room and watches Smitty take Martin's hand with an ease that makes her chest hollow. Forgiveness between them is not theatrical, it's a small ceremony of returning keys. Smitty, with that deceptively soft face, leans in and kisses Martin in a way that reads as absolution and a fresh beginning, and the house seems to exhale. Nicole observes the kiss like a surgeon, silently taking notes, the mechanics of it, the vulnerability, the way Martin closes his eyes and lets that old armor fall away. For a moment she is both grateful and cut open, grateful because she witnesses a model of reconciliation she once yearned for, cut open because she realizes reconciliation for her marriage might not be possible in the same way. She can't stay. It's not dramatic at first. She simply feels the room tilt. Memory is a traitor and a faithful archivist, and every small movement a certain tilt of a glass, a laugh that lingers softens file drawers she would rather lock. The sight of Smitty and Martin makes her think of promises made and broken in whispers, of the quiet erosion of trust in the rooms where she and her husband used to stand in the early years. The thought of reconciling with her own husband is now terrifying in its simplicity. How do you ask two people who have already been ground against each other to come back together without bleeding? She knows their marriage is not a single wound to stitch, but a map of bruises. Some of them are still palpable to the touch. There is grief and the acceptance of limits. She imagines herself teaching her heart new routes around the pain, building bridges that might never be traversed by those who caused the collapse. So she moves, not to flee the party, but to protect the fragile scaffolding of her new resolve. Her exit is a small, private rebellion. Ted runs after her. It's the kind of pursuit that arrives as urgent and inevitable. He is not aggressive, his step is quick and keen, but there is a rawness in his voice when he catches up. He takes Nicole into a corner of the garden, away from the brightness of the living room where molding laughter continues. There, under the spill of fairy lights and a sky so big it humbles, he says things he has hoarded for months. He tells her, with a simplicity that feels like a prayer. He speaks of patience, of learning, of the stubbornness love sometimes needs to become steady. The words are crafted not from grandiosity but from lived humility. They mend in small stitches. Nicole, who has grown accustomed to rehearsing her boundaries, is unprepared for the warmth that floods her when Ted is earnest. She expects platitudes, the sugar-coated promises of someone in the afterglow of affection. Instead she receives a map of intention, concrete, messy, real. For a moment their kiss is a benediction. It feels like truth. But Leslie, with eyes no longer content to be casual, sees them. Leslie has always been a woman of strategies. She knows precisely how to tip the scales. Her hand, light and practiced, finds the fire alarm like a player hitting a chord at the right moment. The alarm shrieks like a god woken from sleep. Ted and Nicole break apart, the kiss interrupted mid-sentence, and the sudden chaos of shrill sound makes the night jagged. They run, donor to the panicked flow of guests spilling into the night, faces bare and exposed under the street lamps. Leslie stands on the steps, triumphant, waiting to gather the shards. Her eyes hold a satisfaction that is anything but private. It is a public spectacle of triumph. The scene fractures further when Ted and Nicole, pressed to a corner of the yard, realize Leslie's presence is not accidental. The bell was a stage direction. Leslie is the playwright who has decided who gets to be seen and who will remain unseen. In an instant the love scene explodes into accusation and rumor. Guests whisper, and whispers become stories before the night is out. Ted's intentions honest, steady morph in the soft storytelling of bystanders. Nicole feels the old weight of scandal, the way other people's interpretations press like damp dirt over a fresh wound. Her humiliation is immediate and primal. It's not the alarm that hurts most, it's the knowledge that private tenderness can be misread, that a single visible moment can reshape a lifetime of behavior into a caricature. While that drama unfolds, the undercurrent of another plot coils beneath the night's laughter. Haley and Bill slip away from the party to each other, the glow of the event replaced by the hush of a small kitchen where candles have been left to gutter. The birthday cake soggy and indifferently half-eaten on a plate, an emblem of celebrations that don't fill the spaces that matter. Haley moves like a promise that's been sharpened into something dangerous. Her affection for Bill is a currency. It is given with calculation. She kisses him with the style of a woman rehearsed in duplicity, each touch a negotiation, each whisper a ledger closing. Bill, naive or eager, takes her cues as devotion. He's tired from work, softened by the attention, and perhaps he likes being needed. Haley, though, carries in her pocket a plan, a final con that will cut the rope they all dangle from. She speaks to Randy in the quiet that follows the party, the air between them humming with ease and intent. This is the last job, she tells him, and Randy believes because he wants to. Haley paints the future like a postcard full of tropical light and empty bank accounts filled with clean money. They will run, she says, laughing at the audacity of it all. They'll be legends who vanish into comfort. Haley means it. She has rehearsed the lines 1,000 times, coaxed the rhythm to sound like a lullaby that will put doubt to sleep. But plans always encounter the uncalculated friction of human beings. Randy gets caught in a web of simple mistakes that cascade. He's cornered by a question from Joey, who is either suspicious or merely curious, and the question is enough to unsettle Randy's composure. A stray name slips Sammy instead of Randy, an error that lands like a stone in the pool of their deception. Danny and Vanessa, who have been watching the party for signs, notice subtle shifts. Haley sitting too close to Randy, the way Randy's laugh is too practiced, how financial anxieties cast shadows where there should be warmth. Danny's mind stitches plausible scenarios together and lands on a single conclusion: treachery. Vanessa, with eyes that have learned to discern the tremors of betrayal, senses not just a flirtation but the beginning of an elaborate theft. "I'll find out," she says to herself, not as a threat but as a promise to reality. Her determination is practical. She is not sentimental about loyalty. She knows what money can do to people and how it narrows them into predators or prey. Haley and Randy's target may have been poorly chosen. The house behind the party is not just a collection of rooms but a theater of alliances. Some of the actors are sharper than they appear. They misread the landscape, not realizing that the gate, both literal and figurative, holds those who've seen too much. Inside those margins, secrets ripple and metastasize. The wrong target, in the wrong house, under the wrong lights, is a mistake with consequences. The concept of a final job becomes dangerous when the people nearby have nothing left to lose. Meanwhile, Jacob and Naomi exist in a quieter storm. Their problem is not theatrical. It is the stuttering of lives that have lost their direction. Naomi's voice is weathered with worry when she tells Jacob that their life is shuffled, a deck of cards missing its face cards. They talk in the language of maps and uncharted roads: who will take the kids to school, which bills can be delayed, whether to sell the house or stay in the suffocating familiarity of it. Naomi believes in logical solutions, budgets, therapy, the kind of applied compassion that thinks in spreadsheets and slow calendars. Jacob, however, is adrift. He wants a radical fix, a reinvention that would erase the past rather than reorder it. He imagines running away from the city, from expectations, into a place where names could be simple and unstoppable. Naomi's frustration with him is less about the idea and more about the panic that flares whenever decisions must be practical. They argue in circles and come back to the same anxious place, a marriage stretched thin by unspoken resentments, promises not yet fulfilled, and the tyranny of fear when applied to futures. At the same time, Isaiah goes uptown, a terrain of neon and open windows where he meets Eva. Their encounter is light and electric, charged by curiosity and the intoxicating anonymity of city nights. They flirt, words tossed like paper bows, and the chemistry is immediate. They share cigarettes outside a club, their laughter binding them in an instant camaraderie that is both tender and fleeting. Isaiah does not tell Eva that he is Jacob's brother. He doesn't mention family because it's easier to be a mystery than a responsibility. The omission is small, the kind most people make, but the consequence is a new thread in a fabric already frayed, a flirtation that can become a knife if the wrong hands pull it taut. Isaiah's ignorance of how this connection will intersect with his brother's life is naive or willfully blind. Eva, for her part, is not calculating. She is simply someone who appreciates the late-night tenderness of strangers who might be more honest than those who live within the tyranny of familiarity. Vanessa and Donald, meanwhile, inhabit a conflict that hides large implications behind everyday choices. Donald wants to be the man who replaces Doug, not by replicating him but by inheriting the mantle of responsibility. He sees himself as someone sturdy enough to steady the family boat. Vanessa, however, sees the risk. Her desire for Donald to go back to school is practical. Education is mobility. It is also a buffer against the dangers that come from being too enmeshed in a community that runs on loyalties and debts. Her worry isn't only academic, it's moral. She knows what secrets can do in small towns or closed circles show. A single truth revealed can unravel reputations. How the discovery of her affair with Joey could destroy Donald's naive aspirations and toss him into a spiral from which he might never recover. Vanessa imagines the day Donald discovers she slept with Joey. She knows the ugliness of that revelation, layers of betrayal, Doug's death circling the edges like a dark moon. The ties to the casino boss, the man who threaded Doug's death into the tapestry of local power, cast a long shadow. Vanessa answers with evasions or half-truths, trying to keep Donald on a path she deems safer. Her fear is not about scandal alone, it's about the dominoes that might fall if the wrong person knows the wrong thing at the wrong time. The underlying gravity of the casino boss, an unseen hand in many of their lives, adds another degree of menace to Vanessa's decisions. The boss is more rumor than man to most of them, but rumor has teeth in this town. Whispered associations with him can ruin careers, end lives, or by silence. Vanessa's knowledge that Doug's death is entangled with the boss complicates everything. It makes her an informant or a target, depending on who listens and what they choose to do with her confession. Her relationship with Joey is not merely a moral failing, it's a liability that sits at the center of a powder keg. Back at the party's outskirts, small betrayals simmer into plans. Joey probes, not out of malice but from a journalist's curiosity sharpened by fear into suspicion. Danny watches, not as a neutral arbiter but as someone who knows how often relationships are bartered for security. She tucks her observations away like receipts, precise, potentially damning. Vanessa, who once was romance's idealist, now measures every statement against a ledger of consequences. Her life has become a balancing act between truth and survival. Smitty and Martin's kiss, the simple, human act of two people trying again, casts a luminous pall over the rest. It becomes a touchstone, proof that people can mend, and a dangerous standard to which others might compare their own brokenness. For some, like Nicole, it is a temptation and a torment. For Haley, it is an inconvenient detail not aligned with her plans. For those like Jacob and Naomi, it becomes an unreachable example. They see repair as a fairy tale, unlikely because the architecture of their problems doesn't lend itself to such clean resolutions. As the night wears, choices multiply. Ted's sincerity and Nicole's fragile bravery create a potential reconciliation, but it is fragile enough to be dismantled by rumor. Leslie's Belle pushes their tender moment into the world, where it will be judged. Haley and Randy plot a con with the hubris of the desperate, unaware that their scheme is a proximity crime, bad timing, the wrong target, the wrong house. Jacob and Naomi's standoff reveals how fear and fantasy can both be forms of avoidance. Isaiah and Eva's flirtation carries the seed of future betrayal because family ties have a way of folding back on themselves. Vanessa and Donnell's quarrel underscores how the past's violence continues to shape present choices, especially when powerful men lurk behind velvet curtains. The night ends not with a resolution but with a delicate, precarious suspension. The party disperses into small groups like flocks scattering from a predator's shadow. Some people go home with pockets full of secrets they think they can hide, others leave with decisions made or postponed. The fire alarm's shriek becomes a private joke and a public wound. The cake is forgotten, a symbol of celebration left half-eaten at the foot of more complicated appetites. The house, which for an hour had been a stage for attempted joy, returns to being just a house: walls that listen, rooms that keep things for later, floors that remember the stomps of hurried feet. Nicole walks into the night carrying both Ted's words and shame's residue. She wants to begin again, and she also understands that beginnings require an audience of willingness her own foremost. The kiss interrupted on the lawn continues to reverberate in the quiet of her chest. She recognizes that what she wants is a life remade, but she has yet to count the cost, the rumors that will gather, the people whose perceptions will attempt to define her, the revelations that could ricochet in unpredictable ways. For now she chooses the small courage of staying alive to the possibility, letting the choice unspool in her hands like a fragile rope ladder. Haley and Randy retreat into a plan that smells increasingly of hubris. Their complacency will need to be replaced by cunning. And cunning is hard when one partner is rattled by questions and another is blinded by the scent of freedom. Danny and Vanessa's suspicions will have to be coaxed into evidence, and evidence requires risking oneself to find it. Jacob and Naomi stare at the same problem and fail to find a mutual language, unless one of them decides to abandon fear for strategy. Their impasse will calcify into long-term damage. Isaiah's flirtation with Eva is a loose thread that could unravel Jacob's world if discovered. It's a small action, but small actions often become the scaffolding for larger catastrophes. The morning after feels different, heavy in a way that words can't soften. The night's chaos has left an invisible bruise on everyone who was there. The fire alarm, the whispers, the stolen glances, it all lingers like perfume that refuses to fade. Nicole wakes early, sunlight spilling across her face, and wonders if the universe is mocking her. She should feel ashamed, maybe even broken, but what she really feels is strangely alive. Ted's words still echo, soft and dangerous. She had wanted closure, but instead, she has an open door, and it frightens her. She knows what people will say, that she's reckless, that she's lost her sense, about something in her has shifted. For the first time in years, she feels the pulse of her own will, ungoverned by anyone's permission. Ted, on the other hand, is in the middle of the storm's eye. Leslie hasn't spoken to him since the alarm, but her silence is not forgiveness, it's calculation. She moves through the house with measured steps, cleaning, rearranging, pretending not to care. But Ted knows the look in her eyes, a combination of wounded pride and subtle vengeance. She's not done yet. She'll wait until he lets his guard down, then she'll move. He thinks about calling Nicole, about apologizing for the mess, but he knows she doesn't want apologies. She wants proof. So he spends the day replaying his words, trying to decide whether love can survive public exposure or if it wilts under the weight of humiliation. The night before, he thought sincerity was enough. Now he realizes sincerity is only the first brick, the wall still needs building. Across town, Haley sits on the edge of her bed, staring at her reflection in a cracked mirror. The lipstick she wore to Bill's birthday is still faintly visible on her mouth, like evidence. Her plan, once crisp and foolproof, now feels shaky. Randy hasn't called. The silence between them is dangerous. It means he's either scared or stupid enough to improvise. Haley hates improvisation, it's how people die. She checks her phone again, and finally, there's a message. Randy's words are hurried, anxious. Joey's asking questions. Danny too. Vanessa's watching us. We need to move sooner. She reads it 3 times before replying, each word she types feeling like a thread she's weaving tighter around her own neck. The money is close, but so are the walls. She tells Randy to meet her at the storage unit that night, away from the streets they know, away from anyone who might recognize them. She doesn't say it out loud, but she's already planning for contingencies. If Randy panics, she'll cut him loose. If Bill gets suspicious, she'll accelerate the plan. The problem is, she still feels something when she looks at Bill, something inconvenient. He's not clever, not dangerous, but he's kind, and kindness has a way of confusing the mind when the heart's been trained for manipulation. She reminds herself that love doesn't fill bank accounts, survival does. Meanwhile, Danny and Vanessa have decided to become quiet detectives. The moment Danny overheard the name Sammy, something inside her clicked, a hunch, the kind that burns slow but sure. They meet in a coffee shop near downtown, both pretending it's casual, though their eyes dart constantly, watching for anyone listening. Danny is restless, leaning forward, her tone urgent. Vanessa is calmer, cautious, weighing each word before she releases it. She's lived long enough to know that some truths are heavier than others. But Danny insists they dig. If Haley's running something, we need to know before it hits someone we care about. The someone is Bill, though neither of them says his name. Vanessa nods slowly. She doesn't admit that her interest goes beyond concern for Bill. What drives her now is controlled ability to steer the narrative before it consumes her. That same night, Ted shows up at Nicole's apartment. He doesn't knock right away. He stands outside her door, rehearsing his lines, feeling foolish. When she opens it, barefoot and startled, the air thickens. For a few seconds, they just look at each other, both aware that what they're about to say could change everything. He starts to apologize, but she cuts him off. "Don't say sorry," she whispers. "Say what you actually want." It's the simplest challenge, but it dismantles him. He says her name like it's both confession and promise. He tells her he wants to start over, no from pity, not from guilt, but from the belief that they might still be capable of something unspoiled. Nicole studies his face, trying to measure how much of it is real and how much is need. The world outside their small moment feels distant, irrelevant. She knows choosing him again will bring judgment, maybe even ruin. But she's tired of choosing safety over truth. So when he reaches for her hand, she doesn't pull away. At the same time, Leslie's patience fractures. She's spent the day constructing a mask of indifference, but now, alone in the dark, the mask slips. She calls someone, a voice from the past, low and authoritative. "I think I'm ready," she says. The voice on the other end doesn't ask for details. It only says, "Then do it clean." The next morning, rumors begin to ripple through the neighborhood. Ted's affair, Nicole's betrayal, all told with the gleeful precision of gossip hungry for drama. Leslie hasn't just let the truth out, she's curated it, sculpted it into a version that makes her look noble and Ted weak. By noon, half the town knows, and Nicole's phone won't stop buzzing. She turns it off. She's done letting other people narrate her life. Jacob, meanwhile, tries to reach Naomi again. Their conversations have become transactional discussions about logistics, the house, bills. But something in Jacob softens when he hears about Isaiah being seen with Eva. He doesn't yet know the full shape of that situation, only that it complicates everything. Naomi mentions it offhand, as if testing his reaction. He laughs it off, pretending not to care, but later that night he can't stop thinking about it. Isaiah always had a knack for walking into rooms that weren't his to enter. The thought that he might be connected to someone tangled in Jacob's own world ignites an old protective anger. Still, Jacob can't decide whether to warn him or let him make his own mistakes. The irony isn't lost on Eva can't fix his own life, but he's desperate to keep others from ruining theirs. Isaiah and Eva's story deepens quietly. Their connection, once playful, becomes heavier. Eva begins to sense the gap between what Isaiah says and what he hides. There's something in his tone when he talks about family, a hesitation too deliberate to be accidental. She doesn't push a not yet, but she files it away. One night, as they walk near the water, she tells him about her past, about the people she's lost, about the fear that everyone she loves eventually vanishes. Isaiah listens, moved, wanting to tell her everything. But when he opens his mouth, Only half-truths come out. Secrets are easier to carry when you convince yourself they're protecting someone else. In another part of town, Haley's plan unfolds in motion. She meets Randy at the storage unit as planned, tension buzzing in the fluorescent hum of the single overhead light. He's jumpy, pacing, his words spilling over each other. They know something, Haley. Danny's asking questions, and Joey. Hey looked right at me like he already knew. She steps closer, touching his arm, soothing him with a practiced gentleness. Then we finish it tonight, she says. Bill's alone, right? We take what we came for and disappear. No more delays. Randy nods, swallowing his fear. He wants to believe her, even though a voice in the back of his mind whispers that Haley's loyalty has an expiration date. As they plan their final move, Vanessa and Danny are doing their own reconnaissance. They find inconsistencies in Haley's story, bank records that don't match, phone logs that loop through burner numbers. It's clear now, Haley's not just cheating. She's orchestrating something bigger. Vanessa's instincts, honed by her own web of secrets, tell her this will end violently. But she's not ready for what she finds next. Joey's involvement. His name appears in a string of messages connected to Randy's alias. The revelation lands like a punch. Joey, the man she's been seeing in shadows, is tangled in the same con. Her stomach turns cold. She's no longer just an observer, she's complicit by proximity. For the first time, Vanessa sees how deeply the rot runs. By nightfall, the pieces are moving fast. Haley returns to Bill's house with wine and a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She tells him she wants to start over, that maybe they could travel, get away for a while. Bill, naive and grateful, agrees instantly. He doesn't see the tremor in her hand as she pours his drink. He talks about the party, about forgiveness, about how people deserve second chances. The irony almost makes her laugh. As he drinks, Haley hesitates just a second, but it's enough to feel the moral weight of what she's about to do. For once, she wonders what freedom would look like without blood attached. Then Randy calls, whispering in panic, Joey knows everything. Danny's with him. Get out, now. The glass slips from Bill's hand and shatters. The sound snaps her out of her daze. She bolts, leaving Bill confused and calling after her. The plan collapses mid-execution. Randy doesn't make it far. Joey and Danny catch up to him near the old rail station, where the town's forgotten stories seem to echo. Joey demands the truth, voice low, dangerous. Randy tries to explain, to bargain, but Joey's seen too many scams unravel to believe anything now. It turns violent fast. A scuffle, a shove, a flash of light from a passing train. By the time it's over, Randy's gone, swallowed by the dark. Joey stands shaking, Danny beside him, both realizing they've crossed into something irreversible. Neither of them calls the police. They just walk away, silent, haunted. News spreads fast the next day, Randy missing, Haley gone. Vanessa reads the report and feels an odd mixture of guilt and relief. She deletes Joey's number but can't erase the echo of his touch. Donnell senses something's wrong. He finds her sitting by the window, staring at nothing, and asks what's happening. She lies smoothly, saying she's just tired. But Donnell's not a fool. He is starting to piece together that the people he loves are hiding entire lives from him. His desire to step up for the family hardens into something else. You need to uncover what's really going on. Naomi, meanwhile, receives a call from Eva. They've met once before, briefly, at a community event, but now Eva's voice trembles with something urgent. I think I've met your brother-in-law, she says carefully. I didn't know until now. Naomi freezes. The coincidence feels too perfect to be harmless. She thanks Eva, hangs up, and immediately calls Jacob. When she tells him, there's silence on the line. Finally, Jacob sighs. Of course it's him, he mutters. He always finds the places I'm trying to keep untouched. For the first time, Naomi laughs, a small, bitter laugh that sounds like recognition. Maybe that's what family does, she says. We ruin each other without meaning to. The conversation doesn't fix anything, but it breaks their stalemate. They talk longer that night than they have in months, and somewhere in the exhaustion of it, a tiny reconciliation begins to bloom. Nicole and Ted, despite the storm outside, find a strange calm in each other. The world may think they're reckless, but in the quiet of her apartment, they begin to rebuild something real, honest, unadorned, fragile. They talk until dawn about what forgiveness means, about how people start over without pretending the past didn't happen. It's messy, imperfect, but genuine. For the first time, Nicole believes that maybe love isn't about escaping history, it's about choosing who stands beside you as you face it. But outside their small bubble, the world keeps moving. Leslie, satisfied with the chaos she's created, begins to realize she's lost the thing she wanted most, relevance. Once the gossip fades, she's left with nothing but her own bitterness. She watches from afar as Ted and Nicole begin again, quieter but stronger, and the sight both infuriates and saddens her. She makes one last call to the same voice that helped her start the rumors, saying, "It didn't work." The voice pauses before replying, "Then maybe you were never the story." The line clicks dead, leaving her in silence. In the end, everyone stands at a crossroads. Haley is on the run, carrying guilt like a scar. Vanessa faces the slow unraveling of her double life. Joey lives with the memory of the rail station, a secret he'll never confess. Danny writes it all down, perhaps as a form of penance, perhaps to control the chaos through words. Jacob and Naomi rediscover the fragile art of staying. Isaiah and Eva linger on the edge of truth, still not sure whether love can survive revelation. Ted and Nicole, bruised but unbroken, begin the long work of rebuilding. And somewhere beyond them all, the gate remains open, a reminder that every escape, every reinvention, every act of love or betrayal, leads to another threshold waiting to be crossed.